All right, cyber traders, welcome on back here this Thursday, August 19th, shortly after 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. And as always, at this time of the day, at least, welcome on back for our afternoon meeting. Hopefully not too loud, hopefully very clear, though, for Bonnie, Kathleen, Jean, William. Great to see all of our students and trial members alike inside our live trading room. And if you're joining us on social media, Facebook Live or YouTube, welcome on back. So without further ado, let's begin. You got the Macy's trade here up off of earnings heading into the market open. We ended up seeing them make a really surprising pop after the open. When I say surprising, I mean, hey, you figure good news, stock should move up, right? But if you've been following these picks that we've had on our watch list, especially like the earnings ones between AMC and Fubo from last week, and plenty of the others as well, and Nikola included, if they post good earnings, does not guarantee a big pop right out the gate at the market open. Doesn't mean it will continue to push up after the pre-market play. So with this, it ended up dropping off at first, ended up re-breaking above 19, and then from there really just took off. Once it broke out over 19, a little bit later on after the open, right here, you can see it ended up building up really nicely. And from that point, you would have expected a couple of shakes, a couple of false breakouts here or there, right? I mean, they were there later on. But man, this ended up pinning itself up really nicely off the 50-cent levels, off of 1950, off of 20, ended up holding it perfectly as support. And then from there, just kept on going. So, I thought it would be a lot shakier across the morning than what it really was. I hate to say it. I ended up missing this whole trade across the day. I actually was short from 19, I think it was 25 at first. And then I realized that it wasn't pulling back and making a lower high, but in fact, making the breakout. I wouldn't break even, so no loss. But man, if I didn't set my stop where I did, I would have been screwed. This thing ended up making a big pop shortly after and just kept on going. So for right now, the Macy's trade is trading 116 plus million shares right now, very heavily traded across the last several months. This stock has barely cracked over like 30 or 40 million shares a day. So with that, it dropped back down from 22 resistance. I was mentioning this to a student inside our coaching session earlier today. He had a little trouble just kind of realizing why I was putting certain stocks on the watch list here. And much more often than not, we have a pretty hot afternoon based off the picks. I'll be honest, yesterday it was pretty weak, and you heard me say that. But it's just to say, one of the biggest criteria that I look for to follow a stock heading into the market close is seeing the stock still near the highs, at or near the highs. So with that, I mean, hey, just at 1 o'clock, I was saying if it could hold strong heading into right now, this time of the day, I would easily put it on our main list. It might be a better short at this point heading into the close than a long. So, maybe I'll come back to this if it really begins to show more signs of life, but I feel like the fun is done on this Macy's trade. All right, so aside from Macy's, though, we ended up doing pretty well otherwise. The SONN stock ended up making a nasty drop just now. I ended up taking a -1 just on the last trade here from 180. But it's to say that this stock made a really nice pop out the gate as well. This one also threw me for a little bit of a loop right out the gate at 9:30. This stock certainly was trending back down leading into the open. Would have expected a lot more consolidation than what we really got at 9:30. So, like I'd said, just shortly after the open, this thing took off, ended up defying the odds, popped right out the gate, got halted. Now, this stock here really quickly to provide a little analysis on this trade. What I'll do is bring up my level 4 program, otherwise, bookmap. And with that, let me just show you this. It might not come off as clean looking, but all right. So when the market opened up, this stock was already showing resistance at $1.78. It was just about a 39,000 share order that was sitting there. So I had that marked out. I had that lined up. I realized that was going to be a level. Well, when it took off right out the gate, got halted, well, it ended up reopening up and then kind of pulled back. But as it reopened, we ended up seeing this monster print on the tape, what I call the opening halt print, much like the opening bell print at 9:30. But 512,000 shares were filled as soon as this reopened up, specifically at 181. So that became a new level for me to follow on this trade. So it's to say that really 178 was like the bottom, but I was looking at 181, and when this ended up pulling back under and over, I jumped in. cheapy stock. You could load up on 2, 3, 4,000 shares. I was in on 2. I ended up getting in and out a couple of times from 181 to 187, then back in again from 181. I got out right around 199 or 198, 197, that is. And then from that point, man, a bunch of us were in on this trade. I remember, I think Gene was in on this stock. Michael, I believe, was in on this stock, a couple of others. But man, once this ended up breaking below 2, and if not that, then just like failing to break higher, you got to get out, because who knows what could happen, right? We weren't necessarily expecting this to get halted on the way down, but lo and behold, that's what happened. This thing was like a mess after, actually. Normally, when I say a stock gets halted on the way down, that's a wrap. That's game over, right? This thing popped right back up after it got halted on the way down. It was pretty crazy. Well, from that point, ended up beginning to pull back, right? So it ended up using 181, 178 as resistance up until just a moment ago. The stock made a surprising pop. I saw it trending up to 180, and Norman had called it out at the same time as I was looking at it, and made the pop. And I wanted the entry right away. I didn't have the chance to get in. It started to push up, and I thought it was just going to go right out the gate up to 2, but ended up pulling back. I took my entry off of 181 right here, broke under, over. Once I realized it wasn't moving up higher anymore, I got out. I took a -1 right there. So again, you got to learn to get out, realize that it's not the right time, if anything, but ended up just breaking right back down lower. Now at this point, the SONN trade's garbage. This stock is not, worth considering at all. Ended up making that second win type of move just here, but without it holding support off 181, game over. All right, so we ended up covering the Macy's trade. We covered SONN. I mean, really, the ones that we did well on were, across the top of the gainers list. So, makes it simple enough for me to just go from top to bottom. Now, the SNOA trade, very choppy now, as you could see, like dancing around 10, up and down. So I'm really not particular about that. Perhaps maybe they're trying to build a support off a lower level, like 980, and then to see it move up. But I don't like the choppiness here at this point heading into the close, at least from pre-market. This ended up making a really nice slingshot from 850. We had a lot of buying at 850 here right before the 8 a.m. pop. So, once 8 o'clock hit, we ended up seeing this make a really good move. But more importantly, it made the better move after it made the slingshot from former resistance. So from that point, made a nice push. But after the market opened up, this stock ended up dumping off. Well, wasn't right out the gate, but ended up actually popping, then dropping. This thing made a nasty shake, broke out over 13 a little bit later on, came right back down. I was pretty shocked. I don't think this got halted on the way down. You'd wonder, like, see a stock move from 1336 all the way down to 1111. Make a wish. You'd think that this stock would get halted. It didn't. Either way, just to say, when you see a shake of that size, I mean, don't get me wrong, given the range it made in pre-market, it could allow for a bounce down the line at some point in time. But man, at this point right now, this needs to get going really soon. Otherwise, like I'd said before on the SONN trade, it's just not worth it right now. All right, so I got the price column stretched out here. Market, you could really see, is like a representation of this day, just extremely flat. Market's pulling back a little bit here from around 12:30 Eastern time. Not a whole lot really going on. So we'll go from top to bottom otherwise and see what else we can get. ENSC, not a whole lot happening there as well, right? I feel like that's going to be the case across the board here. So we'll kind of skim through. I know Donut had earnings going into the morning here today. They are pushing up. Relatively new IPO, right? So, between that and seeing this stock make a nice push here at this time, I mean, hey, it's hard for me to not put this on our main list right now. Just very thin volume on the order book. So you just got to be a little wary of that. This actually reminds me of the Macy's trade earlier today, whereas it looked like it was beginning to round off around 21 bucks. It just ended up going up higher and higher. It built the rounded top at first. It looked like it was going to begin to pull back, but then pushed up, and then it rebroke resistance off of 21.10, and then from there made new highs. So, Donut for right now, it's just got to break over 15 pretty strongly, seeing more buying coming in off and above 15, and then from there you hope to see a nice pop. All right, so we got one, at least one for right now. PXLW, good spreads, just Really low volume per minute traded right now, about 3,000 shares per minute right now it's trading. DATS, I guess a new IPO as well, pretty cheap one too. All-time highs already, at least from earlier today, where it ended up topping off around 535, 536. But man, very similar shake here is what we had on the SNOA. Once you see a pop and then drop of this enormity, you figure it's just only going to break down lower over time. All right, so we keep skimming through. I'll tell you, there's not really too many familiar names across the top of the gainers list. That's why there was a little hesitation right there. GOVX, kind of a familiar name. I guess this ended up getting halted. Wow, I ended up missing this from earlier today. I took a small break after 10:30, and just this one ended up popping, getting halted, reopened up, and was pretty shaky. So this already made its big move. Right now, I guess you're seeing the second wind type of move, as I call it. But just like we saw before, at least on the other one, the SONN trade, it made that second win type of move, but then came right back down. All right, so with Macy's, you got Kohl's, KSS, right? Ended up making a big pop as well after the market opened up, moved with Macy's, you could say. I believe this is also off of earnings, but ended up making a nice slingshot from roughly 51 up to 56.50. And yeah, I guess same thing with this here too. Just tighter range for a $51 stock. This just isn't worth your time. How many shares are you going to trade that on? So unless if you're making $2 a share, it's just not worth the opportunity compared to something like GoCo. And this isn't even as worth it now at this stage in the day, just in terms of price, right? I'd rather follow the cheaper one, if anything. But yeah, for the meantime here, GoCo, it's shortable, if anything. So this ended up popping, dropping. It broke below 5 just now. This really could be a pretty good short here at this point, folks. So I'll come back to this at the end. Don't I wouldn't be surprised at all if I slip this on the main list at least, as long as it's shortable and if it could, pull back towards 490 sooner than later, break below the 4,600 share order on the bid there, and then the 7,800 share here at 485. All right, so that was number 49 on the gainers side anyway, GoCo. All right, let's hop over to the losers list here. Today is Thursday, not Friday. So I thought today was Friday for a split second. So I was about to talk about Bitcoin, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Bitcoin, Cardano, all of the other cryptos that we're in. So otherwise, heading over to the loser side here, OTRK down about 43% and perhaps counting. Stock is dropping off, trading about 7,000 shares per minute. It's just got a thin order book. So I don't like that part, but it is shortable. It's down. I didn't know if it was at all-time lows or not. It's not. I don't know. I feel like we don't need to put this stock on our list. If it had better volume on the book, I would be really jumpy to it. A couple of weeks ago, we had a streak of 3 days in a row where we called out, shorts on our watch list heading into the close, and they only just continued to drop like a rock. CCL, Nikola, those two come to mind, right off the top of my head. Got the OT trade AHT. This one has more filled in order book at least. And we are familiar with this stock as it ended up making this big pop for us going back. And I got to go back to a daily chart here, but going back into the beginning of this year, we ended up seeing this stock AHT make a really nice squeeze up. And it wasn't, 30, 40 bucks back then. It was a $4 or $5 stock. This stock did like a 10-to-1 reverse split. So, it wasn't really that price back then. And now it's only breaking lower. So, I'm more particular about this one compared to the other one that we just showed, that OTRK trade. This one, AHT, I like a little bit more to see this perhaps break lower. I think this is also at all-time lows. Yeah, pretty close to it. 1270 was the low back from October of 2020, and that's not really the price that it was back then. But factoring in the reverse split, that's the, so to say, all-time low, or it was from today. So it broke it. Now let's see if it could break lower now from this point. All right, familiar name, TIGR, the stock I think we did have on our watch list yesterday afternoon. So let's take a look at what happened yesterday really quickly on this trade. This stock was near the highs, right? So going into the afternoons, like I just said before, I'm very particular about following stocks that are trending up well or trending down well near or at the lows or highs of the day. At 2:30 in the afternoon yesterday, this stock was pretty close to its highs, and we are pretty familiar with it. So easily enough, we put it on our list. But what I said here on this trade, and you can go back on our YouTube channel right there, youtube.com/cybertradingu, and check out our recording from yesterday. But otherwise, though, I'd said this stock, it was really similar to a lot of the other stocks that were on the watch list at that point. The volume traded per minute was like very low for what the stock normally does on a day-to-day basis. So we've seen this stock TIGR make bigger moves, better moves, but just trade a lot more volume otherwise. And I was a little disappointed that this didn't make the pop up higher. In fact, it was a better short heading into the final hour of the day than anything. But hey, right now, this stock, for as much as it dropped off, it's moving off the lows, but at least we're familiar with it. It's a stock that could be making a bit of a bounce otherwise. And we'll see where this lands us here. The TIGR trade. We'll put this back on our list. Got Alcoa here. I think I skipped over. I don't know. A little choppy for a $36 stock. Just, very name brand stock, just given the liquidity, the volume it trades day to day. All right, folks. I think that just about rounds it up for me here. Let me know if there's anything else up, down, left, right, more than 5% that you would want me to check out here quickly. From Grant inside Cyber Group, Open, OPEN, spiking. Yeah, I'd called that one out earlier. So this one you wouldn't have found on the gainer side just because it wasn't up the proverbial 5% or more, right? But, we saw this from Benzinga Pro from earlier heading into the afternoon. It was pushing up nicely for us at the time. Right now, right back to the high. So, yeah, good call. I like this one. Good reminder. The open trade. The stock pushed up really nicely for us going back into last week. Then, as you could see, just got crushed day over day after that point. So up and down, this thing goes very volatile, and that's what we embrace here at CTU. As long as it has like a decent order book, which this stock definitely has. So yeah, good call. I like this open trade. You'd assume major resistance up top at 15. There's not as big of an order showing here just yet. There's one at 1498, one at 15, and I'm assuming 15 is going to be a lot bigger than what you see there. All right, so good call from Grant. Let's see what else we got here from RJF on YouTube. Welcome back. He's asking about the BTBT trade. Well, I love Bitcoin, and with seeing this spike up pretty nicely, you got to love it. So pushing up pretty quickly here, BTBT, again, not up the proverbial 5%, but hell, we are really familiar with this stock. Just going back into mid-July at the end of the month, we ended up seeing it build up this Fausto flag under 950, popped it, and man, just completely took off, doubled in price, So for right now, this stock, I don't mind putting on our main list. I mean, off that big spike of volume, the volume traded per minute started to die off. And with that, you might happen to see the stock make a shake back down sooner than later if it doesn't get going. So, I'd say right now it's in a pretty indecisive area. We'll see if this could pull back a little bit more towards 11 or even 1110. Or otherwise, if it pops right now, great. 1150 would be your next resistance. We'll give this a look. It's not a 14 stock Josh Levitan afternoon watch list just yet. So right now we're at 5. From Mitch. Welcome back, Mitch. He's talking about GOVX. It's up 8+%, pushing up nicely, but I feel like this stock, the stock already popped and dropped once. I'm not expecting it to make a second big move. From Doug, welcome aboard, Doug. He's asking about ENSC inside YouTube chat. Sorry if you went over it already, joining late. No problem at all. Similar with this as I would say with the other one though that Mitch brought up. All right, from Doyle inside Cyber Group, going back and forth evenly here. He's calling out the SBEV trade, up 28%, 1.4 million shares traded on the day. Stock is just a little wacky right now. You can see the spread's pretty big for the meantime. The orders are pretty thin out there collectively on the order book. So for as much as this moved up, hey, if this it's funny. It's very situational because, hey, if I saw the stock as it was pushing up here, you would know that I'd be pretty interested. I'd say at the time, hey, let's put it on our list. But when you see it dump off shortly after, you got to write it off in the meantime. So, hey, there's probably going to be one of, the stocks that's on the watch list already. Maybe it's the AHT trade, maybe it's DNUT donut, or maybe it's open. Either way, I'm sure one of the stocks that I have on the list isn't going to make the, big illustrious run up that we hope for it to make. But at this point now, it's easier for me to write this one off, just given what we're seeing here. I appreciate the call out though on this one, Doyle. Just got a ping from Kas. I don't know. This thing's not tradable. There's a private chat there. Let's see. One more look on Benzinga Pro here, then we'll wrap it up. ZENV. I'm going to ping here on ZENV. It's at the highs. Nah, just very low volume traded per minute right now. That thing's not tradable. I'll tell you what, I think that we're pretty much set for the meantime, folks. We don't need to have a big list. So let me just go back to the two I'd say I'd go back to, the Macy's and GoCo. Macy's, it's just so heavily traded. So to see this stock continue to pop up, I'm telling you, it needs to do this really soon. As soon as I finish up talking, as soon as we finish this meeting, it needs to pop. If it doesn't do that much sooner than later, it is not going to be worth your time. So if you did well on Macy's earlier today, then I'm sure that you'll focus on it yourself at least. But for right now, I think we'll be it's better to be safe than sorry. GoCo, otherwise, let's see. This was more of a short stock, at least a call out for a short heading into the close, so long as this could pull back to 490. And here we are now. So you know what? A little slow it looks like, but we're familiar with the stock. It's tradable. More of a level 1 to 2, but yeah, I'll put this on our list. Nice downtrend to work with here heading into the afternoon so far. All right, folks, we're gonna call it for right now and wrap it up. So for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, as always, I appreciate you sticking with me each and every day, each and every afternoon here at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you have yet to join us live inside our trading room, feel free to do so by going right down to the link on the banner below, just to get yourself started on a small trial with us here. But for all of us there right now, like Doyle and Grant, Bonnie, Debbie, William, I see John, all of us otherwise, if I didn't say your name, I apologize. I look forward to speaking with you folks coming up pretty shortly. I'll be back on the mic myself coming up at 3:30. Talk to you soon.